of us were free. Why, oh, why create a system that allows you to rob and steal? Why, oh, why? Now you allow your mentality and your heart to become cold as ice and hard as steel. Cold as ice and hard as steel. Do you wonder why, when you push me down, I get back up and rise a little higher, a little bit higher? 'Cause I hold within my soul that divine fire.
And, I'm just here, just to try to help somebody understand, a few things, man, about America, about who we are as, foundation of Black Americans. I know the last time I was doing, a little documentary, I was documenting, my family tree on my father's side, my paternal family tree. And come to find out, we were more native, to this land over here.
Okay.
If you search social media, especially during the coast of Ghana and other places where they had the slave trade going on, they want to make us one big African. And during the civil rights movement, everything that we fought for, 13th, 14th Amendment, and things like this, they benefit from. They can come over here and have anchor babies and benefit from being a citizenship, which was generally for us. But they benefit from it, man. So, so this is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
They benefit from everything that we have set up, but, we don't see the benefit that they bring to the table, and none of these immigrant groups, that we see that we can benefit from at all. So when we delineate, it's not because of hatred, it's because we peep game, we see. So what I want to say now, man, is that we're not one big African, because like I said, we're native to the land, this land here. I only got to the 1600s, but there's no telling, how far it goes back.
A research team in Philadelphia was doing routine ancestry verification on a batch of genetic samples submitted through a national heritage study. Standard stuff. Nothing flagged on intake. The samples came from self-identified Black Americans across the Southeast: Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, the Carolinas. The team was comparing haplogroups, running the usual population models, checking ancestry percentages against known Atlantic slave trade migration corridors. Then something came back wrong. Not wrong like a lab error. Wrong like the reference panels didn't have a category for what they were seeing. The genetic clusters in these samples weren't mapping cleanly onto West African populations the way the algorithm expected. There were markers showing up that the standard African ancestry model wasn't built to explain. Traces that looked like they pointed somewhere else entirely. Or rather, somewhere that had been there long before anyone thought it had. The team lead later described it in an interview as the feeling you get when you're reading a map, and suddenly realize you've been holding it upside down. This wasn't the first time something like this happened, but it might be the time the scientific community finally has to deal with it, because the DNA record of Black America is telling a story that nobody officially authorized. And the longer researchers sit on that data, the louder the questions get. Hit subscribe. We go deep on stories that got buried every single week, the kind of history the algorithm doesn't boost and the textbooks skip. You're in the right place. Here's what most people think they know about Black American ancestry: the Atlantic slave trade, West Africa. Specifically, the region's colonial records call the Slave Coast and the Gold Coast, modern-day Benin, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal. That's the default story. That's what the heritage industry runs on. That's what gets quoted in documentaries, school curricula, and mainstream media whenever Black genealogy comes up. And parts of that story are accurate. There is genuine West African ancestry in most Black American genetic profiles. Nobody serious is disputing that. But the story isn't only that. And the parts that aren't only that have been systematically underemphasized, misclassified, or, in some documented cases, quietly left out of consumer-facing ancestry reports altogether. The first crack in the standard model showed up decades before consumer DNA tests existed. Physical anthropologists working on skeletal remains from colonial-era burial sites in Maryland and Virginia kept noting morphological features that didn't fit neatly into their reference populations. The bone density patterns, the cranial measurements, the dental wear. They were flagging populations that didn't fully match their West African comparison data. At the time, those findings got explained away. Measurement error, sample contamination, researcher bias in the comparison models. The anomalies got published in footnotes, not headlines. Then the mtDNA revolution happened. Mitochondrial DNA testing in the 1990s gave researchers the ability to trace maternal lineages across thousands of generations. And when those tools got applied to Black American communities, especially in isolated pockets of the rural Southeast, what came back wasn't just confirmation of the expected story, it was a revision of it. The haplogroup data is where this gets specific. Haplogroups are genetic lineage markers passed down maternally through mitochondrial DNA and paternally through the Y chromosome. They don't change across generations. They're inherited whole. If your maternal haplogroup is L2A1, that means your unbroken maternal line traces back to a specific ancestral population in a specific part of Africa. And that line has been unbroken for thousands of years. The expected haplogroup distribution for descendants of the Atlantic slave trade runs heavy on L1, L2, and L3 subclades. That's the West and Central African signal, and you do see that in Black American samples, strongly in most cases, but you also see other things. You see X haplogroup, not in trace amounts, in frequencies that are hard to explain by recent European admixture alone. I have to stop here for a second, because there is always a point in these videos where the research goes further than I can take it in a video. The full picture, the complete science, everything DNA has revealed that does not fit into 20 minutes. I put all of it in one place. It is in the pinned comment below this video. Find it before we continue. The X haplogroup has a distribution that researchers have spent decades arguing about. It shows up in indigenous North American populations at high rates, in certain Middle Eastern populations, in some European subgroups. It's rare in sub-Saharan Africa. Its presence in Black American profiles at statistically notable frequencies has generated exactly zero mainstream press coverage, despite being documented in peer-reviewed journals. You see Q haplogroup, which is predominantly associated with indigenous American and Asian populations. Its presence in Black American samples gets labeled Native American admixture in most consumer reports. But the question of when that admixture occurred and under what circumstances is more complicated than the two-word explanation suggests. you see B and C haplogroups, again associated with indigenous populations, appearing in isolated black communities in the Carolinas, Florida, and the Gulf Coast that have maintained tight geographic clusters for generations. The question isn't whether these markers are there. They are. The question is what story they're telling.
When you look at the Jerusalem-Rome War in 70 AD, you can look at that war, you can look it up for yourself. A lot of, and then plus it's biblical prophecy prophesying once Jerusalem is surrounded by armies, which was the Roman army, a lot of Hebrew Israelites, black Hebrew Israelites, went to West Africa and set up shop in West Africa. They already knew how to set shop up, so they set it up. And a lot of those Africans, which are Hamites, not Israelites, but Hamites, got black skin, but they're Hamites. A lot of them got jealous. I mean, this is why they're over here now, because they saw how we was prospering in America, and they wanted some of that prosperity. So they came over and found the way to weasel their way in here, which we helped them. But now we're not like them. They turned up their nose to us. Even now, today, you hear a lot of them talking about us. You see a lot of Africans exploiting our culture by doing content on social media about us like if they don't got enough going on.
And I honestly don't know what is still encouraging young people of Africa to still do this. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears to some people they'll rather try to get to their traveling destination by all means than to stay in their countries and explore alternatives. They'll rather take any chances, even if it includes dying, than to stay in their countries and look for alternatives. They go on these kinds of life-threatening road trips to Europe through Libya, and the same situation repeats itself all the time, and they won't stop. I have personally stopped being sympathetic to such victims now. I've reconciled myself to the fact that this is a life they have chosen, knowing exactly what's ahead of them. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at this video and try making meaning of it as to what's happening in Libya with African youth. Take a look.
Stupid black Africans. What you come do in North Africa? You come to our country to steal and you leave your country. Why?
This country.
These men are migrants with dreams of being smuggled to Europe by sea.
Excuse me, can I speak to you?
We are going inside. Have a seat in your place. Have a seat in your place.
They come in their thousands from Niger, Mali, Nigeria, Ghana. It's hard to believe that these are the lucky ones, rescued from warehouses like the one in which we witnessed the auction. They're sold if those warehouses become overcrowded or if they run out of money to pay their smugglers. Of these rescued men, so many here say they were held against their will. It doesn't take us long to find victory.
Just take us home, he said. You wish that were simple. I don't really understand what people expect anymore from when they choose to embark on such a trip, ladies and gentlemen. Do we still have to tell you that going on a road trip from any part of Africa, through North Africa, through the Mediterranean Sea to Europe is a deadly voyage? Do you still need us to tell you this? I mean, what will it take for young people in Africa to know that that route should never be on their to-do lists at any point in time? Every kind of statistic shows that they are more likely to go and die on their way to getting to their destination than actually getting there. You find people like this all the time with all this information, choosing against the odds. Now you shout, take us home. Do you actually think these Libyans who are happy to make money off from selling you care about what you are saying, ladies and gentlemen? You think they will invest their resources into giving you what you want by taking you home? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm only tempted to believe that these rescued people whom we are seeing in the video are still alive because a foreign NGO or some human rights group got involved in time.
So that they can still make a bag off us, but they don't never really talk about what's going on in their own countries. You know, that's a form of exploitation, bro.
So like, what do you? So wasn't you telling me something about how the Caribbean people they wanted to deny Haitians and?
Yeah, we're gonna get into the Haitian thing, but first I want to continue on so that these Africans can do their research, so they can see that we're not one big African, man. We're not one big African. You know, see, before it was named Africa, it was a bunch of different tribes that may have had alliances or may not have had alliances. You know, and you see that today. So this theory about unity, man, it's a pipe dream. You know, there was never unity. When you look in the Bible, there's never unity. There was never unity in families. You know, in the beginning, Cain killed his brother Abel. So this unity that you're looking for is not going to happen, man. It's never, we want it to happen, but, you know, the Bible prophesies this is not going to happen. So it's just one big pipe dream, man. You know, you got to get people that's like-minded, you know, and Christ came to get those people who are like-minded and gather them together. And then therefore you can have unity among the body of Christ. And even in that, man, if you're not dying daily, then there's going to be schism even in the body, because people refuse to die, you know, to themselves and really acknowledge Christ's way and do it. Just do it. I mean, you know, listen, when they wanted more wine at the festival, you know, his mother said, whatever he said, do it. You know, whether you can understand it or not, do it. Because there's a blessing in doing what he says. All right, but now, but let me just round it up, you know, because everything ties into one another. You know, like in 70 AD, when the black Hebrew Israelites moved to West Africa, set up Negro land in West Africa, you can do your history. However, a lot of them knew how to come over to the Americas, you know, back then. Why? Why do you say that? And how do you know that? Because
The history that we were all taught growing up is wrong. My name is Scott Wolter, and I'm a forensic geologist. There's a hidden history that nobody knows about. There are pyramids, chambers, tombs, inscriptions. They're all over the world. We're going to investigate these artifacts and sites, and we're going to get to the truth. Sometimes history isn't what we've been told. As a forensic geologist, I rely on the study of rocks to learn more about our own history. And throughout my career, there have been several artifacts that I constantly return to. One of them is called the Bat Creek Stone. Though small in size, it's considered one of archaeology's biggest mysteries. I first learned about it during an unrelated investigation back in 2008. I was examining some cave inscriptions with a woman named Leslie Kalin when she told me about the stone and how it's inscribed with strange writing. I was immediately intrigued and had to know more. The Bat Creek Stone was discovered back in 1889 in a Native American burial mound in Loudoun County, Tennessee, along with jewelry and 9 human skeletons. The writing on the stone was first thought to be a form of Cherokee script.
Later, it was determined to be an ancient form of Hebrew. Why would a stone with Hebrew writing be buried in a Native American mound? After years of research, a possible connection began to emerge. Could the stone be an ancient Hebrew land claim, possibly from the lost tribes of Israel? The lost tribes of Israel are 10 tribes that disappeared from the Holy Land in 722 BC after the Assyrians waged a bloody battle against them. To this day, no one knows if they died, escaped, or assimilated into the population. Some believe they traveled to America to build a new Jerusalem.